Well, Mark, welcome to Menorca.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, who is Mark Tennant and what the hell is he doing in Menorca?
Well, I've been invited to come and teach a workshop for Menorca Pulsar, and I've been here since Monday. It's now Friday afternoon. We've done 4 days, and it has been wonderful. Great group of students. Everything you could ask for. So I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How would you introduce yourself if you had to?
Well, I'm American. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, many years ago. I was trained at a school, undergraduate school, an art school in Baltimore, Maryland, the Maryland Institute, and I've been painting really since then, but I've been doing art my whole life and painting since I was 18 years old. So,
being so involved with your job and your artistic part of your life, how do you balance it? Can you separate your personal life from your professional life?
Well, my professional life is my personal life. So I feel like I'm a well-balanced person. Everyone may not agree with that, but I'm happy, and I work every day and put a great deal of effort into my work, and it's a life that I'm very pleased with. I mean, every day is not perfect, but yeah, I just work every day, keep banging away, see what comes out. Always looking for new things.
There's a lot of artists who find it difficult to balance their personal work and teaching. What do you think about that? Because you're actually quite a good teacher. You like teaching, don't you? How do you...
To balance my work with teaching?
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's part of the piece that I'm working on. I look at teaching as it is an element of the entire piece that I'm working on. So the students, the classrooms, the facilities, the whole thing is part of a particular piece that I'm working on. I don't look at it as two separate things, because what I get from the teaching contributes greatly to my own work, and hopefully from that and what is gained through that experience, I can convey it back. So it's a circle that continues. What the students give me is fantastic.
So you enjoy it, all of it?
I love it.
There's no suffering in painting?
Well, there's the suffering that you don't win every day, but you have victories here and there. With painting, there's no clear-cut decision whether you've succeeded or you've failed. I often say with a lawyer, he wins the case or his client goes to jail, his client has to pay up, a surgeon, his patient goes home, his patient doesn't recover. So they know pretty much if they've succeeded or not. Where with painting, it's up in the air. There's not a definite answer whether it's right or it's wrong. But as Freud would say, I think it's a good way to spend your days pursuing this.
So it's about making it work. It's no good or bad, is it?
Well, there's good and bad. I mean, there's plenty of bad and there's some good, but there's not a fixed idea that determines success or failure, I don't think.
You are quite an expressive artist, but at the same time, you're quite accurate. So how do you feel that balance between expression and accuracy?
Well, I look at the accuracy as something that I need to hang the artistry on. I'm afraid, I don't trust myself to get into something without having somewhat of a map or a plan. Through these principles, height to width comparisons, foreshortening and measurement, it helps. I feel that that's just one aspect of all this that I don't have to worry so much about, making sure that that's all determined as well as can be expected. And then that leaves me at liberty to concentrate on the deeper, more subtle aspects of painting.
And being it that way, what do you enjoy most, starting or ending a painting?
Well, they're both. Starting a painting is a very frightful thing. Diebenkorn said, a blank canvas is terrifying, really. I believe he said until it's a bit besmirched, it becomes fair game. Until you get in there and mess up that surface a little bit, then it's much more comfortable to work in. Ending a painting, I'm not even sure how that comes about. Freud said, he said it sometimes sneaks up on him, that he thinks that he's got a long way to go and it's right around the bend. But he also says it works the other way, where he thinks he's almost finished and there's so much more ahead. So I'm not sure if I know when it's finished, how it's finished. Someone that studied with Couture in Paris relayed to his students that what Couture had said to him, something to the effect, he said, "How do I finish a painting?" And Couture said, "Call it finished." So when is it finished? I don't know.
Well, actually, Joshua Reynolds said that 9 out of every 10 times working more on a piece doesn't actually mean a better result. And why does this mean such a negative effect on some painter's work?
I think if we're talking about the same one, he said that provided that it's directed toward the proper object, that's the problem for the artist, to find out if I think he also said, nothing is denied to well-directed labor and nothing is to be obtained without it. Well-directed labor. I'm not sure.
I mean, sometimes overworking a piece does mean a negative effect on a piece, actually. Sometimes you don't have to work it that much. You don't have to aim for perfection. Sometimes that's negative.
Absolutely. No work can be too much finished. Your pencil, your brush doesn't have to be moving the entire time you're working. You can spend a good bit of time thinking, a couple minutes thinking, and maybe 1 minute to execute, 3 minutes weighing it all out, the pros and cons of a particular move, and then making the mark that you want. May or may not work. You can scrape it off and do it again. You don't have to be constantly marking the surface. You need to be thinking about what you need to do to strengthen it.
And about expression that we talked before, is there a point in which an expressive brushstroke becomes, egocentric, like showing off?
Well, there's all kinds of brushstrokes. I mean, there are brushstrokes that do show off. But there are brushstrokes that I've found, there's some brushstrokes that look fast, that are not made quickly as I study it more. There's a lot of brushwork that I think is about showing off. And then there's people like Chardin and Corot, the dignity of their brushwork.
How much imperfection do you think that perfection requires?
That's a good one. There is no perfection. There's a great letter Pissarro writing to his son, Camille Pissarro, and he said, perfection, as Degas would say, why not? Perhaps we can, why not make that our aim? And there's plenty that would say that there is no perfection. There's only one perfection. The Creator is the perfection, and we're all imperfect. So I don't know, but I like to think of Degas from time to time.
Well, actually, someone said that beauty lies on the right mistakes.
Yes.
Is it somehow that way? Doing the right mistakes. It's not about avoiding mistakes, but doing the right ones.
I agree. No, I think that Thelonious Monk, the jazz, bebop, piano, do you know his music?
Yeah, I do.
But in New York, when he was alive, there's a station in New York that covers bebop really closely, and they were playing, they had a day of nothing but Monk, and the guy called in and he said, you know, the thing that makes Monk so beautiful is that he hits a lot of wrong notes. Well, Monk called up the station and he said, hey man, tell that guy that the piano doesn't have any wrong notes. So I saw the guy, Phil Shapp, whose radio show that was. I ran into him and I said, is that a true story? He says, absolutely a true story. So I like to think of that. Yeah, the piano doesn't have any wrong notes.
And do you feel sometimes like you know nothing about painting?
Yes.
What do you do those times?
Well, you know, the thing is, you can get yourself down in the dumps. I think it's easy to happen, you know, that I haven't had anything really good happen to me lately. I'm working hard, but I don't see any progress. But I guess you have to just put everything in perspective and look at the things that have been successful. I think one thing that really works is just a lot of times just put all your paintings against the wall. Put everything against the wall. Don't look at it. This was a sergeant recommendation to his friend Paul Helou. He said, he came to Sergeant, he said, I've had it. Everything stinks. I'm finished. Sergeant said, put it against the wall. Don't look at it. And he said he went back in like 48 hours and turned it around and saw things that he could. So I think sometimes you can become consumed and then not see clearly anymore. So I think that's go out, ride the bike, take a walk, get away from it. I mean, you come back around.
Have like a new view on it.
Yes.
And when was the last time that you did something for the first time?
Recently. I mean, all the time. That's very important to me, that to constantly try to do something that I haven't done before. And, probably right before I came, I've been in Paris a week and here a week. Before I came to Paris, the 10 days before I left for Paris, I was doing some things that I had never done before. Great feeling. And it's a great feeling to get feedback, whether it's Instagram or whatever. It's just great to hear somebody that likes it when you've taken a chance, so playing it safe is a mistake, and I think that all the great art was created by people that didn't take the easy way. I really do. People that took big risks. I just know every time I've had something happen good, it's usually because I've gone out on a limb and tried something. And that's a really great feeling to do that. But there's nothing that says you can. I was talking about it yesterday. I think that truly we can do whatever we want to do with painting. You can do whatever you want to do. If you want to copy somebody else's work, if you want to copy a photograph, if you want to paint the figure, if you want to pour paint on your canvas, you can do whatever you want to do. There's nobody that says you can't do what you want to do, and that's a great feeling. There's no art police.
Should be.
No, that's the great thing that we have. And I think that too, that it's just that, you don't, as an artist, the great part of being the life of an artist is that you just do it until you die. I mean, it just continues. It's an ongoing experience. I'm very happy about that.
And what scares you most? Being bored or become boring?
Both. I mean, I know those two terms. Somebody had complained. This is years ago. I heard this. He says, I'm having these problems because I'm bored. And the guy said to him, that's because you're boring. I mean, did you ever think it's because you're boring? And that hit me hard. If you're bored, look at yourself. I mean, why would somebody Whether that's true or not, I've always remembered that. And I used to use this. I'm bored. That was my excuse for things many years ago. That would be my chief excuse. And when I heard this, I'm like, man, oh man, there we go. Maybe it's because you're boring.
And you make changes in the way you work because you're getting bored, or because you don't want to arrive to that point?
I think I don't want to arrive at it, and I think that you will arrive at it by becoming monotonous or tedious, or by pursuing things that are uninteresting. I think painting, really, my favorite paintings always I find exciting. And I'm at the point now where I just want the painting to be exciting. That's really what I'm looking for. It's to doing a painting where you're inside of a painting that's exciting. There's no greater joy than that, I don't think. Doesn't always happen, but when you tap into it, that's a great feeling.
It is, isn't it? And which would you say that's the most overrated virtue?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that. I tell you, I think one thing that is pretty meaningless is if, and I hear people talk about it, and I respond to it when somebody makes a great big sale and a whole lot of money on a painting. When you really think about it, does that really matter? I mean, it's nice to get the money, but I think that's overrated to be a big seller. And that can be a dangerous thing too, because that can, no matter, from my experience of having sold some paintings, no matter how much you want to avoid the thinking as you're working on your next series of paintings, there's something in the back of your mind saying, this manner was what sold before. And that is a horrible place to be, to let yourself go to. And it's almost human nature. I know it may sound like sour grapes, I don't know, but I don't want to ever be in that position where I'm trying to repeat or imitate myself, something that had worked before. I think the greatest ones don't imitate themselves. They're always looking for new things to explore. And at first, a lot of times I'll see an artist who I respect, and I'll see him go into a new direction, and my very first reaction is, it's ugly. And then I go and look at it. I live in New York, near Chelsea, so I'm looking at a lot of great art, new art, and I'll go look at it and I'll come away feeling I was wrong. My first reaction, I kind of like the old way, but then I go see it, and that's what makes a great artist, I think, being able to adapt to changing time, it's a different year than last year, and recent paintings by so-and-so, and you go see them. A great artist can continue to produce great work in different manner, I think.
Not guided by the market or the galleries, I guess.
It's so refreshing to see that. But of course, when you get to the level where the gallery will take whatever you give them, and that's a pretty high level to reach. The people I'm thinking of in particular, but perfection, as I would say, why not? I mean, to be at that level of making art where you can disregard what you've done and has made you successful to some extent and head off in a new direction and then make that great. And that's what I've just recently seen.
Those artists, I mean, the interesting thing is how they view some things. It doesn't matter what it is, it's just how they see it. It doesn't mean it's an apple or figure or whatever. No? It's just that way of seeing it, of filtering reality is what makes it interesting.
The way of thinking. I mean, yes, to see the refreshing way to approach new images, to make new images, new colors, and new ways to apply paint.
You always name a lot of French painters.
Particularly 18th and 19th century French painting.
Exactly, yeah.
And the Rococo movement it goes in and out of fashion, but I love the drawing and the training that goes into it. The French Academy. I'm very interested in the methods of teaching in that period, and it lasted for several hundred years. And the disciplines. It turned out so many great artists, but in the long run, it became sort of wooden and died, and it turned them inward and didn't really allow the new work in the second half of the 19th century to be part of the salon pictures, and then they broke off from it, and the Academy, after a couple generations, collapsed. Maybe that was where it should have gone, but the teaching and the training for 100 years there was fantastic.
We were talking about the French Academy, and what about the Russian Academy? What do you think is most important from it, or?
I think that the training that goes on there, or at least was going on there until 2000, because I think it's fallen off just a touch. I know it has in China, but it's unbelievable. The skills of those students. I visited Russia, St. Petersburg. I saw it. I saw the students working independently on their own, young people, and doing the same projects. They have a little museum there. And the same projects were being done 200 years ago that are being done today. And without anybody standing over them, the discipline is pretty impressive. And I've taught in Paris, and there is nothing. I mean, I haven't seen it. They're unfamiliar with the basic principles of proportion. It's gone. But in Russia, it's thriving, and I think the best work happened, from what I've seen in that Repin Academy in St. Petersburg, I'd say between 45 and 95 is the best I think I saw there. It's all great. It's still great. But there's not much other than technical expertise going on there. So my idea would be to put together a school that could sort of blend together the concepts of an academy with some thinking, with some ideas, more readings, and not strictly technique. But their teaching of technique is amazing, amazing.
And about your own training, what do you keep from it, or what did you get rid of, or what did you change from your own training?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this because it's a lot of times when you get out of school, you have to unlearn some things, especially in undergrad, because you're very young and you're impressionable, and there were things that were passed on that I see now, that were more or less incorrect information. So I appreciate parts of it, but I also regret parts of it. But I went to school in the 60s, and it was different. It was a lot different than it is now, even. It was very free and somewhat disorganized. But there was also great things about it, and I guess I don't totally regret it. From there, I really spent a lot of time in museums, and what I really learned out of it all was to spend as much time in the museum as possible, because I think that's where you really learn to paint. That's where you learn to appreciate painting. And I've also copied a lot in museums. I think I've copied in 11 museums around the world and taught copying in 3 museums. And that is such a valuable experience. But that, too, is a little bit falling by the wayside now. But yeah, the museum, I think, is the greatest. People ask me, where did you learn to paint? I say, where did you learn to draw? I have to say the museum. Go to the museum. That's the greatest place to study.
Hollis Dunlop talked a lot about D&G Keller, who was his teacher. I guess he was also yours.
Yes.
Was he also an influence for you? Or?
Big influence. I saw that. He speaks about Dean Keller the way that I feel about Dean Keller. He was one of the most important people that I came across in my life. And we just hit it off right away. And when I heard the Hollis, I said, my God, that's the same story. I mean, Dean Keller was a guy that recognized if someone was serious or not. And he picked it up immediately. He picks it up. He was very perceptive. He was a great teacher in so many ways. He demoed every single class. He demoed without the model there. He talked about anatomy. He talked about foreshortening. He talked about placement. And he knew anatomy backward and forward. He knew the masterpieces backward and forward. He's one of the few teachers. There's so many teachers that I've dealt with over the years, but I seem to never see him in the museum. And I spend a lot of hours in the museum, but I ran into him in the museum quite a few times, by himself or with his wife. But he was a museum goer, and he was very receptive to my copies and used to say the most fantastic things about my copies. And we corresponded in letters when I lived in California, which I still have these letters. He was a fantastic writer, by the way. I don't know if you've ever read any of his essays.
Oh, yeah.
He's a great writer and a great intellect. And his father, but his father, I guess, Dean Keller Sr. So he was, he comes from a Yale heritage, and he was very influential. So he was a major guy. So when I say unlearn, it wasn't him that I needed to unlearn from. I'd like to run into more people like him. I'll tell you another thing about him. I'm a teacher, and one of the things that I like to do is have my classroom prepared in the morning when I get in there. So I'm usually in there early, setting up whatever my lesson plan is for that day, setting up the model stands, the draperies, whatever I'm going to do that day. And I'm usually in there a good bit before the students, so when they arrive, everything is ready to go. Well, I've dealt with a lot of teachers over the years, and that's not you don't often come across it except with him, and you couldn't get there earlier than him. And he's coming from Old Lyme. He was coming from up in Connecticut somewhere. He had a long way out of New York. This was in New York when I studied with him. So he was there very early in the morning on a cold day. I remember him telling me a story about when it's really cold, you put newspaper under your sweater. And New York can get really cold in those canyons. And he just had a lot of good stories,
And what is the most fascinating thing you've learned lately?
It's too easy to give up on the idea. And it's almost like we're being tested. If things are put in our way almost as a test, and once you've decided that it's not something that you're going to give up on, the door's open.
This is something you actually tell to your students. Your students are really happy with you as a teacher. You've been teaching a lot of years. But I guess there must be something really interesting or important you've learned from your students as well.
Absolutely. I want to drive people and push people to do their best. And I asked them point blank, I said, is it okay if I push you to do your best? And very few people answer no to that question. They want to do their best. That's why they're there. They've taken out a loan, they've moved to another city, they've picked up their family and quit their job, or whatever the reasons for it. They've decided they've made a commitment. Well, now let's make sure that we go for it and we're successful with it. Then I see them pursue it and achieve success, and it's the greatest thing for me. There's really nothing better than that. That's a legitimate thrill to see people make careers for themselves, whether it's an animation studio or illustration, graphic design, teaching, as they've been good students of mine and have worked closely with me, and to see them have success and get married and have children, and it's just a great thing. I love it. I mean, that's really important to me. So they give me a great deal. So that's great. They give me a lot.
Being a teacher is somehow like being a consultant.
Absolutely. It's like being a counselor. They're looking for guidance. Sometimes a student, they come to the school with a whole different major, a different idea what they want to do, and I'll get them in my office and we'll talk about, I'll look at their work, I'll look at their portfolio, we'll talk about what they've done before, what are their real goals, where do they want to be in 5 years, things like that. And from there, I can sort of make suggestions and direct them into courses, and I've seen it pay off. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, some of them are doing really, really well. So I love it. It's great.
And has any of them made you any question that you say, God, I didn't ask this myself before?
A lot. I mean, I guess I can't think. I hear a lot of things that I never expected. I mean, when you're teaching, you're under a microscope. I mean, they're watching you closely. So part of, as a teacher, that's something that you adapt to. And you know that, if you're going to stress any sort of principle in your class, you better be a model of that. That's good for me. I mean, that's one of the things they give to me. There's so many, teaching is back and forth. It's not just talking and giving a lecture and folding up your notebook and walking away from it and going and forgetting about it. It's an ongoing relationship with these people. But one thing that I do stress, and I talk about this a lot, is that I believe that everybody should graduate. When I say graduate, I mean graduate in the sense that they're not a perpetual student. And there are quite a few of my students who I see that that's their deal. But I think that students need to move on and need to graduate. There's a certain amount of years that you're in the education mode, and then you need to move out of the education. I mean, we're always going to be learning. But there's a time when you're not going to be graded and turning in assignments, and you're going to have to go out on your own and produce art and not just exist in the comfort of that situation.
Should this be something that the schools should teach? Because this is not a matter in the schools, like what the world is like outside.
Absolutely. And when I was called into San Francisco to direct the graduate program. I had taught there in the graduate department for 12 semesters, and I was gone for a year and a half, and they called me to come be the director of that department. And I had also taught previously to that 12 semesters in the undergrad, so I had a lot of experience with this school. And when they called me, I knew exactly what needed to be done because I had been teaching there in that department. And one of the things that was done was in the graduate schools, it was a thesis project, diploma project. That was what was needed for graduation. And it was a pretty rigorous course. It took about 3 years to complete this course. But what I found was, and what I think I found out, that nobody's really interested in somebody's diploma project. I mean, if we're going to be setting people on their way to make a career, I don't think many people that are taken in for a job interview are going to impress somebody with their thesis project. I think they're going to impress people with a portfolio of quality drawings, a variety of quality work, and a portfolio, something they can present. And this is what I turned it into. We had committees, and we would meet at midpoint and final reviews, and we would go over these things, and the students would come. When I first started, I I allowed this to continue, and they would come in with their proposals for final projects, and I felt that they were unsure of what they were doing. They just knew this is a requirement to graduate out of this course, and they were doing it, but it just didn't seem like their heart was in it, or they were doing something that they weren't comfortable with. And I knew from my experience that this is really not what these employers are looking for. They're looking for a portfolio. Do you have the goods or not? I mean, that's all well and good, you've done this project, but so what I turned it into was with the committees, as we started to review portfolios. And through the classes in the curriculum, we geared it toward those people being able to create a portfolio that would enable them to gain some sort of employment. So this particular school was open to it, and they were glad that I was, because one of the things that they really promote is the success rate of their graduates. And their graduates do come out of there with skills. I just wanted to group it together into a formal portfolio instead of diploma projects and all the nervousness around it, and into something that was, it was really easy to evaluate for the committees. And is it right? Is it not right? These people, do they have a knowledge of basic drawing, perspective, light and shadow? I mean, basic stuff that to get employment, you're going to have to even teaching,
And even more things like more from the business market, like how to make your numbers, how to deal with galleries, how to pay your taxes. Those things no one talks about that, which is actually day-to-day life in an artist.
They don't. And there they did. So one thing, when I was there, I had tremendous freedom to do what I wanted with my department. So we did it. That only goes so far. I mean, the freedom, these big schools, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and to get things accomplished, hoping they're not watching this, but I mean, to get things accomplished, I mean, you have to go through these different levels of management, and to try to get to it's unbelievable. I mean, we tried to get a plaster cast collection in there. I worked for it for 1 3/4 years, and it fell through. After 1 3/4 years of them coming to our school, of us going to their school, back and forth, and phone calls and letters, and the whole thing collapsed. It's like so much time was wasted. So it can be a little frustrating too. So, but I did a 2-year stint of it, and it was very interesting. Got a lot accomplished, but professional practices is something that needs to be stressed in all universities, I think.
I've also seen that you are very interested in your students being aware of art history. Is it possible to be a good artist without knowing art history?
Well, I guess anything is possible. I don't see how you would be able to. I mean, you have to be aware of your predecessors. I think you need to be aware of the history, or we're links in this chain. I mean, to lead into the future, we need to know what they've put out before us. To me, it's so interesting to see to go back and see the lineage of some painters who they have trained with. I mean, to think even of 20th century Edward Hopper, the lineage I can trace back to Jerome and early 19th century Paris. I mean, it's fascinating, I think there's 8, in that particular one, there's 8 that led to Edward Hopper. I mean, great American painter. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Do you know Hopper? Yeah. So I like it for that. I mean, I like history anyway, but I mean, I really love the museum and art history. And I really, as I take my students, I always take the whole group, at least a Saturday a semester. We do it on a weekend. And I like to just do a survey from 16th through early 20th century, just sort of casually walk through the rooms and, everybody has a good time and enjoy it, but to touch base with it. There's so many things I talk about as we get older. I see so many things they've turned out to be a disappointment to me. Like, I don't know if it's happened to you, but I'll read a book. I read a book when I was 22, and I'll reread the book now, and I'll be very, very disappointed. I thought it was so great. Or I'll see a film from the old days and watch it again, and it's like, I can't believe I thought that was great. And it happens a lot, more and more and more. It's like music, but with the museum, the paintings that I started when I was 18 is when I started going, and those paintings are better than I thought they were. Where everything else is diminished, the art in the museums, it just continues to impress me even more and more. That is fascinating to me.
Another thing I found quite fascinating myself, seeing you as a teacher, is that many students actually associate hard work with boredom, but you get your students to this point in which they have fun with hard work. How do you do that?
Picasso said work is a necessity for man. I truly believe it. I mean, we're here to work. That's why we're here. And we talk about painting as work. I mean, I always kind of I laugh to myself, this is work. I mean, this is like, I totally enjoy it. I mean, I get such a joy from it. But it's work because you need to continue to work at it to improve. So in that sense, it's work. But I think that, and one of the things that the French Academy stressed was that they put a high priority on the virtue of hard work and discipline. Almost by doing these exercises that the French Academy put out there, of course we want you to become proficient at drawing, but we also want to develop your sense of understanding the virtues of hard work. And I love that. I mean, I think that's part of it too, where hard work does not have to be drudgery, does not have to be painful, and it can be if you're stuck in something that's not what you want. You have to do what you love. And if you're lucky enough to find it, and if you know what it is, I believe you should pursue it, but with an intensity.
We were talking about hard work, and hard work can make an excellent artist, but what is it, this spark that makes a genius? Do we have an idea of what it is?
Well, over the centuries, that word genius has taken on different meanings. I'm not sure what a genius is. I mean, I just spent time in the Louvre copying Michelangelo's sculpture, drawing from Michelangelo's sculpture and Rembrandt painting. And I was in front of two geniuses for many hours. That they're all not geniuses. I don't think all the paintings in the museum are not created by geniuses. Those two happen to be, in my estimation, geniuses. Can you create it? I don't know. Is it born? We were talking about it last night. Is a genius, does a genius understand complex design, imagery? Do they understand compositional rhythms without sitting down and figuring it out? This is my big question. Is great music composed through trial and error, or does it just sort of flow from a genius? So I'm not sure, but I'm not sure it can be created. I don't know where it comes from. It comes from sometimes the oddest places. But I like to think about that. I like to think about why these pieces are so complex, yet so simple. I really only find it when I copy and I can take them apart and put them back together. They compare it to translating a novel. To really understand the intricacies of a novel, you would have to translate it through copying. It's so similar because pieces that I've looked at for years, I'll go in and set up the easel and actually take it apart and reconstruct it and put it back together, deconstruct it and put it back together, and I can't believe what I find. And it's never fails. The combinations I find are fascinating. Yet it could look so much like it just fell into place that way without a whole lot of preconceived ideas. I mean, it goes on and on. What is genius? How does genius? Where does it come from? How does it create? What motivates a genius?
Good question. That's it. Well, actually, I'm lucky to be interviewing you, but who would you interview if you could?
If I could go back in time, that would be my first wish. I said, if I could get a genie out of a bottle, I would just want to watch Franz Hals paint a head. I mean, I would like to watch a masterpiece. Who would I like to interview now? I mean, I think there's a lot of fascinating people in the world. I mean, I'd like to talk to Elon Musk. I'd like to talk to Johnny Ive, the designer for Apple. I'd like to talk to Lee Clow. So yeah, there's quite a few people I would like to meet, talk to, have lunch with. I find good conversation so stimulating. I lose all track of time. When you find a person like that, a great mind, I'd like to follow them around, ask them questions, find out what they think about, how they feel about everyday things, how they feel about books and paintings.
And talking about the art business, because I know I've heard you that you're not very interested in this part of the art, like the business, galleries and all that. How do you feel about it? How do you deal with all of this?
I sort of leave it to them because I have no ability to do any of this. I don't understand business. I come from a family, really, of businessmen, although there's quite a few teachers on both sides of my family on the fringes, but my immediate family is business people. My brothers, my father, they're very good at it, and they just have tremendous talent for it. I have no talent for it. I don't understand it. Doesn't appeal to me. And it's important because everybody needs money and everybody needs to exist and make a living. But as far as me understanding how to navigate that world, I don't know. So I'd leave it up to these people that do this. And as a result of me being so naive about it, I just don't know. I leave it to these people. And if a painting sells, it sells. I mean, I don't know what to do. I get good feedback, but a lot of times I don't think that it's just changing the art world too. I mean, so much art is bought now and just put it to storage. It's not, people don't enjoy it in their homes. They're collectors that are like, it's like a commodity. They just store it away in warehouses and hope to sell it at a profit. So I don't understand, but I don't need to understand. I mean, I'd like to teach and I like to paint and somehow I get by, but yeah, sure, I'd like to sell a lot of paintings, but it's not my main motivation.
What do you like the least of everything related to the art world, to being a painter?
Picasso, I love to quote Picasso. He said, the people that busy themselves with art are for the most part imposters. I totally agree with it. People that busy themselves with art. I'm looking for sincerity. I'm looking for honesty and straightforward. I want to get the straight facts. The people on the fringes of the art world are the ones that I think are a problem. the great artists are the people that I want to know more about, the people that make great art. So yeah, as far as the art world and the commerce of art, I don't know very much about it.
And what makes you forget about those things you don't like or you're not interested in, which is your hideout?
What makes me
Forget about those things that you don't like.
well, because I think the most important thing, after all said and done, you're going to meet with a lot, even with teaching. I mean, you'll run some of the red tape and bureaucracy I ran into trying to get things that were definitely necessary. Some of the things, obstacles that I would encounter, all you have left is your work. I mean, you try to do these things, you give it all your effort. I mean, but all you really have left is your work. And at the end of the day, that's what you can depend on. So that's what I want to do anyways, do my work and do my painting and drawing, and that's where the real satisfaction comes from. So I don't dwell on these experiences that are less than, I don't dwell on it. I move on.
Do you think that, well, you talked about the commercial part of it. Do you think that the prices are related to an artist's quality or to his business skills?
Sometimes. I mean, I guess sometimes is an easy answer. Sometimes I think that people that are at the top have arrived there on merit because they belong there. Sometimes I find it very curious. That's life. I mean, I can't dwell on it. I can shake my head. I can say that it is what it is. But I find that through just day-to-day dealing with people, social media. I love social media. I love this stuff. I love Instagram and Facebook and what it's done and how it's changed the world. I love Google and all these images that I can pull up. And so whenever I start to get distracted or concerned, I work. I look at what other people are doing. I read about what other people are thinking about. All those problems go away.
It's all about your work. It's your personal hideout, your own work, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because that's up to you. In other words, you can sit around, which I do have sat around and complain that everything's wrong and nobody can accomplish things anymore and so forth and so on. And you'll be in a situation where you're depending on somebody to get this final thing done that you need, and they'll let you down, or they won't show up, or they won't answer the phone, or they'll be late, or whatever it is. But when it comes to you and the canvas, it's up to you entirely. Success or failure is entirely your doing. So there's a great, it's up to you, and that's a great thing, If it fails, you failed. You can't blame it, or you can't look to any other. And if it's success, it's because you pushed it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's the thing I find in it. It's like it's entirely up to us. And, I don't mean to say that everything is a disaster. Sometimes I get myself caught up in that, but then I just turn to painting and say, but go to the museum. There's a lot of things that have happened that are really great. There's a lot of things in the world that can really get you down. But then all these advances in technology and all this information that's available to us, like, instantly. I mean, this is really great. So there's a lot of really good things. And then the museums and these fantastic works that have been left for us to study and contemplate and go back to my easel and try to create something of the same species. That's what I do about it.
And one thing I'm curious about, when you when you would talk to you about doing the workshop, you told it that you preferred female models as well as many artists do. Is women a theme or a subject or a genre within the art world? Why is the woman so important? What is it about it?
Well, I mean, women are, it's the beautiful lines, the dignity of a woman, the character. You know, I prefer drawing a female. I haven't given it a whole lot of, thought other than that. But there's, where I work in Spring Studio, we get male models, and it's all worthwhile. It's just, as far as making paintings in the studio, I don't use them. But it's definitely necessary to draw male models too.
And about pursuing beauty, who are your references about seeking beauty?
Well, there's a lot of contemporary artists that I think their work is beautiful. I lately have been looking at Edwin Dickinson. I don't know if you know his work, American. But I love Fairfield Porter, and I love George Bellows. I love a lot of American painting. I love Daumier. I don't know if 21st century work is beautiful in the sense that I find it more interesting than beautiful. And I love Adrian Genny, his work. Talked about him before. I'm not sure it's beautiful, but it is beautiful. But I'm not sure if it's universally recognized as beautiful. It is beautiful to me.
And what about non-figurative art? Are you interested in it, or?
Yes, I'm interested. I think the importance of abstract expressionism came in at a time when there were a lot of questions about where the world was heading. The pendulum swung so far to the side, and the result of this was Pollock and Rothko and Motherwell, artists who really pushed the possibilities of painting into a completely new direction. And I think that there's a lot to be gained as a figurative painter from what they did and the risks that they took to do that. And I think it's really important that work existed. I'm not sure it's relevant if someone were to paint in that manner today. It could be. I mean, I don't know. I take everything as it comes, every painting as it comes, and I try to keep an open mind. I'm looking at sincerity when I look at work. I mean, that's my chief. That's what I'm looking to find.
Well, actually, I think that some of your figures' environments could be considered abstract expressionism, couldn't they? Do you focus it that way, or do you?
Well, I'm flattered to hear you say that. I mean, those people mean a lot to me. To paint a non-figurative painting is not. I've tried it, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It's very complex. There's so many factors involved that are different than the world that I come from, and but I want to look at them, and I want to read about them, and I want to read about the people that it's sort of, with that painting, I almost need to be guided through it by people that are scholars in that field, and that really helps me. Rosalind Krauss is one that it's complicated reading. I like to read about. I love Giacometti too, and I love his early sculpture. I love the German expressionists. I think I like to look at everything. I like illustration. I like American illustration. I love all painting and all drawing. I really do.
It's been great talking to you. Just one more question. How's it been, this experience this far at Menorca Pulsar?
Fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful place to make art, I mean, the clouds and the color and the wind and the setting, just fantastic. And the accommodations are really nice too. I mean, I'm in a beautiful private bungalow, and I mean, I really do feel like I've been treated really well. And we just got off the plane, and you guys were there, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it's been a fantastic experience. And the students are all good. And they're all different parts of the world, and it looks to me like successful people. They're coming here to really learn something. It's a very positive experience. Love it.
Thank you very much. What's been a real interesting experience and fantastic is having you with us. So we really want to thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and we really hope to have you sometime again.
It'd be great. I'd love it.
Thank you, Noir. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.